you very much. I feel great honor to be invited here as the only Asian, only Chinese. Actually, I'm a scholar in international relations, not an expert in infrastructure or transportation. But in recent years, the Chinese government pushed ahead, put a lot of efforts in promoting a cross-border or cross-continental project called the Belt and Road Initiative. So according to this initiative, connectivity is one of the key elements to promote the economic cooperation with all the countries along this route towards Western Europe. So connectivity has become a more and more important part of our studies. And I think actually it's not only China, but also the European Union attach great importance to connectivity. As I know, last September, the EU also released a connecting Asia and Europe strategy during the Euro-Asia meeting. So I think this conference is quite significant, not only because it's to celebrate the 100th anniversary, but also because it is held at the right moment to think ahead, to look ahead for more opportunities for the cooperation. So I think in order to answer the question, can China's transport development be copied? I think it is necessary to introduce to you the Chinese rapid development in this area from two angles. Okay. So the first angle is to take a look at the rapid development domestically in China. And the second, let's take a look at how China put a lot of efforts in international market. And of course, last not least, let's take a look at the opportunities and challenges. So firstly, let's take a look at all those rapid progress in China in last 70 years, but especially in last 20 years. I select a set of data from 3 different years for comparison in the following areas: the road mileage, railway mileage, freight mileage, passenger volume, and also the freight volume and the throughput of the main seaports in China. Why I choose these 3 different years? The first year, 1949, is the founding of our republic. And then 1979, we regard this as the starting year of the reform and opening up. So after that, Chinese economy released the huge dynamics and based on more market-oriented rules. And also, last year's data is the latest data. So we can see the huge progress during these 70 years, especially after the reform and opening up. Let's take a close look at the passenger volume. So in the last 70 years, our population has increased from 540 million people to 1.4 billion people. It's like tripled. But let's take a look at the capacity we transported passengers. The number in 1949 is very low, but nowadays, last year we had transported almost 18 billion passengers. And also in terms of the freight, last year we transport more than 50 billion freight, 50 billion metric tons of cargoes of goods. So because the company invited me is a railway company. So let's take a close look at the railway systems development. We all know that China is a very big country. It's the 3rd biggest country in the world in terms of the land area after Russia and Canada. So the geography is also very complex. So we all know the development of a railway network means a heavy investment and very high technologies, and also a lot of input of human resource, etc. So honestly speaking, in the first 50 years, after founding of the Republic, the development in this area is was quite lagging behind. But since 2004, yes, 2004, yes, the central government set a plan to develop the high-speed train network. So the first high-speed train network, first high-speed train line was completed and put into service in 2008 between the capital city Beijing and a very close city, also a very big city, Tianjin. And after that, China has entered into a stage with very rapid development in this area, in the high-speed train network. I think there are a lot of reasons, a lot of elements behind of this development, because we know that nowadays, 2/3 of the high-speed train mileage is high-speed mileage is now in China. China has become the largest country, has become the country having the longest high-speed trains. So why this change suddenly happened after 2004 or 2009. I think that 2008. I think a lot of elements can explain that. So the first element is the huge demand created both by the economic development and also our huge population. So after the reform and opening up, a lot of people, they leave their hometown in rural area and go to the big cities and enter into the manufacturing industries. So this huge migration, of course, requires the huge capacity of the transportation. And the main way of the transport they choose is the railway because it's cheaper and also faster. And also, with the development of economic level, more and more people now in China, they believe that traveling is part of their life. So during the holidays, they like to go out to those senior sports. So all these demand, they converge together, so we see huge people at the railway station. And these two pictures actually was taken several years ago, before we had the high-speed train. So we see so many people, and these pictures were taken during the Spring Festival. So Spring Festival is just like a Christmas day in Western countries. So it's a holiday for family reunion. So people will go back home to see their families or go out to have their holidays. So that's why we see huge people need to mobilize by train, and also the condition in the train were very, very poor. But these two pictures were taken in those new high-speed train station, and also the condition is much better than before. So I think the second key element actually is the national plan made by the central government. So actually in 2006, the central government and according the ministry, they made a plan for a medium and a long-term development of this network. And also in 2016, they made a new one and set a lot of goals to 2030. And according to this plan, in 2025, the proportion of the high-speed train should be about 38% of the whole railway system. So that means there will still a lot of construction in China. And beside of this particular plan on railway network, Chinese government also released another relative plan that is to develop 16 city clusters in China. So according to this plan, Beijing, the capital city, should be reached by most of the rest provincial capital city within 8 hours. And also, between these city clusters, or between these major big and medium cities, they should be reached by 4 hours. And within a city cluster, people can reach everywhere within 1 to 2 hours. So definitely, high-speed train will be the major measure for people to realize these very fast very fast journeys. So the third element, I think, is the heavy investment from the government or from those state-owned companies. So from this bar graph, you can see the annual investment from the government put into the railway networks building. And I think another element is quite important is the development of technology and our capacity of production. Actually, Chinese development in this area has experienced 3 different stages. The first stage is to import those technologies and products from those advanced countries. The second stage is to integrate the technology and products home and abroad. And the third stage is the current stage is mainly rely on the products and the technologies innovated by ourselves. So the second part, I would like to introduce you what kind of efforts the Chinese government has made to have this global strategy in the area of transportation or the transportation infrastructure. So actually, there are 2 aspects. The first aspect is Chinese side try to participate in more infrastructure construction projects. And the second one is to create some new transport routes toward Europe. So firstly, to participate in more infrastructure construction projects. We have already had a lot of these kind of construction projects in Africa, in South America, and also in Europe, in Southeast Asia, and also in Europe. So here I make a list of some projects in Europe, what I'm quite familiar with. So the first one is in Poland. Unfortunately, it has failed. It is at the beginning year of the Chinese side tried to push ahead this Go Global strategy. And the reason behind there are a lot of reasons, like the natural disaster, the flood's impact. But also, I think the most important one is that the Chinese enterprise, didn't know quite well about the local labor market. So it caused the rolling cost and also the delay of the time. But Chinese side actually learned a lot of lessons from this project. The second one and the third one, the second one is a cross-border project, try to build a railway from Budapest to Belgrade. Also, this project meets with some difficulties because we realize that these 2 countries, they have different political identity. One is EU member state, and another one is still candidate state. So actually, the regulations are quite different. So this caused the imbalanced development of this project. The part in Serbia is now in construction, but the part in Hungary is still in the bidding process. And the fourth one, actually, it's the third and the fourth. Yeah, the third and the fourth, they both in Western Balkan region, and both in the non-EU states. And the last one, actually, it's also in West Balkan, it's in Croatia, but it's quite significant because Croatia is the newest member state, and this is the first project Chinese company win through a bidder and to participate in a EU fund project. So we hope that this can open the gate, can create more opportunities for cooperation, not only with an individual European countries, but also with the EU. So, besides of taking a part of all those construction projects, Chinese side also opened some new routes for the cargoes to Europe. So we give all these routes a unified name. We call it China-Europe Rail Express. So these are the routes. They have the north route and also south route and some different branches. Actually, we can see these express trains, they developed very, very rapidly. The first train, it was in 2012 from a city in China to Duisburg in Germany. But nowadays, we see that these trains, actually, there are more than 65 lines in operation, and we have already realized more than 10,000 trips, and they depart from 59 Chinese cities to reach almost 50 European cities in 15 European countries. So finally, let's talk about the challenges and opportunities. The biggest challenge, domestically speaking, I think it is the imbalanced development within China between East and West. So you see most of these lines, they concentrated in the east part, but in the north part, in the west part, because of the geographical feature, it's quite difficult, and also there are less big cities there. But the Chinese government tried to realize the balanced development between West and East. So China will keep putting a lot of investment in Western area. But of course, it will cause a lot of risks, like the domestic inflation, and also too much pressure on the public finance. And also, we have many other challenges. For example, I have told you that we already have like 65 lines of the China-Europe rail express, but actually many of them, they are overlapping. So it's kind of a waste of human and natural resources, and they compete with each other. And in order to win these competitions, many local governments, they provide subsidies. So I don't think it is kind of sustainable development for all these lines, all these routes. And also, when we try to cooperate with European countries, we meet with many EU regulations, and the Chinese enterprises are not quite familiar with these regulations. So we are still in the process of adopting to these regulations. For example, the railway between Belgrade and Budapest is a very good example to show you how the Chinese side respect to the EU's regulation. And also, if we look more broader, the current competition between big powers, more precisely speaking, the relationship between China and the US, the trade war, maybe also will have some negative impact to our relationship with some European countries. So there are a lot of uncertainties, and definitely these uncertainties will have some impact to the international transportation system. So finally, I would say something about Latvia's position in China's development of transport network. Actually, in 2016, the summit of all the leaders between China and the Central Eastern European countries was held in Riga. So during that time, actually, there was a train departing from Yiwu, a Chinese city located in southeast China, arriving here in Riga's central station. So this train brought a lot of Chinese goods. And also, I checked on the network, I checked on the internet. I found that 2 years ago, another route, multimodal transportation route, was also opened in Riga. Actually, it is a transportation from Chinese city to Riga by rail, and then changed to the shipping to Rotterdam. So it's kind of a combination of transport on land and also on the sea. So this route actually is very fast, shorter than the other routes, because it's kind of cooperation between China, Latvia, and also Russia and Kazakhstan. So this line doesn't need to go through Belarus and Poland. So the duration was shortened because of this reason. And also, China has already expressed a strong willingness to cooperate with Latvia, because we regard Latvia as a very important transport hub for the trade between China and EU. And also, we know that Latvia is very passionate in participating in a project named Real Baltica Global Project. So we hope that we can have more opportunities to work with our Latvian friends and also the other Central Eastern European countries in all these projects. Thank you very much.